So I've transferred all the files for you so you can have the Justin Oliver concert, but I'm only going to put together, like I said, one camera, and the rest you will have to put together. So you can see I've divided them out by camera, which cards, since we had to put multiple cards in, and this one only had one card. That's normal. It had a 64 gig card, and it was fine. But you'll see there are different cards based on when we had to switch them out. We did switch them all out during the break, so they should all start cam 2, or excuse me, card 2 at the same time. Some people may have started recording a little bit later. One thing you will notice is that in the audio we do have a mix that we did get from a jump drive that we plugged into the audio system, but we also have a Tascam mix. Unfortunately, the second portion of the concert there was an issue where they thought it wasn't recording. However, it was recording, so we did press stop and then we did press record again. So there is a song that this one does not have the entire mix. However, you can find the entire mix for the first song in the beginning of the second set of his concert. So I will upload these for you, but I wanted to show you how to put them together. So you'll notice that I do have different folders, and what I'm going to do is I started making these exported raw footage ones, because remember you will have to put these together and create a one file in order for you to do a multicam edit. So I'm going to copy this folder and I'm going to move it to this camera because this is the one I'm going to do, and I'm going to relabel it exported raw cam to card 1. So I still have my actual raw individual files, but then I'll have the one that I will export out from Adobe Premiere. So now I'm actually going to export out all of these so that way you can have one file already done and edited for you, and I will put it in the exported raw cam to card 1, so I have the individual clips, but then I have the one that I exported out. So I'm going to go into my project, I'm going to navigate to my cam 2 card 1 folder, and then I'm going to go here, I'm going to click on the top. Remember, like we've talked about before in previous tutorials, if you hold the shift key and click on the very bottom, and I don't want to include the sound check because I don't plan on cutting that, but you can. And then I'm going to click, hold, and drag and drop to the timeline. And you can see now I have all the clips on the timeline. I'm going to delete the space by clicking in the empty space and hitting delete. You will notice that you won't be able to see the audio waveforms in play until this progress bar is gone. It's generating the peak files, so you can actually see the audio peaks and waveforms and actually play everything out. I would recommend checking, playing through, especially where you see two clips meet, to make sure there is no space. But if you did the drag and drop method that I just did, you should be fine. So we're just going to double check. It is going to generate the peak files for each of these individual clips. You can see it is on card 1, clip 9, clip 10, and then I have 11 and 12. At this point, you could just export out the audio that has the camera audio and do your multicam edit, and then after your multicam edit, replace the audio utilizing the audio from our Tascam recorder or from the... So after you get these on here, you can just go ahead and export it, or you can go ahead and actually replace the audio if you want. The part that I'm really going to be looking for is when he claps his hand. I told everyone to record and to zoom in on his hand, so every camera should have done that. So let's check and see. I'm going to mute it though so we don't have to listen to it while I drag it. You heard him say, is everybody rolling? We're double checking. So if I wanted to, I could listen for the clap on the file from the audio mixer or from our Tascam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move my playhead back frame by frame using the left arrow key to where I can get it to where the hands are actually connecting. And then I'm going to select my video and I'm going to hit an M for marker. This applies a marker on your video and on your audio waveform that shows you where the clap should be. But it sounds like I did hear it a little bit earlier, but we will check and see. So now what I'm going to do is I can go to our media browser, but it says that my hard drive is offline because it got bumped, but it is still here, so that's going to be wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Project, and then I'm going to go and look for media browser. It says it's still not there, so I could quit it, but I can actually just import it. So I'll just go ahead and import the audio folder. Now I have the entire audio folder in there, and then I can decide which one I want to do. So I would listen to both media files and see which one you like the best, be it the board mix, which should be quite similar to the Tascam DR70D. However, we did have somebody manually adjusting the gain just in case there was some issues, but you also have the board mix. So if I wanted to use the board mix, I can just find where the hand clap is. So you're going to hear some music in here because it also records the music from when he was on break. So if he was on break for 30 minutes, you're going to have 30 minutes of audio from the show. So I'm actually just going to go, for tutorial's sake, into here and find the first clip and bring it in. Now I have clip 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load it into my source window and try to see where the hand clap is.
What's up, everybody? My name is Justin Oliver.
So that was the clap, so I know I have the right file. I can zoom in if I want and try to see where the clap file is. It's probably one of these larger, probably right here. That was, and we could see from the other video he clapped once, but people weren't all rolling even though we asked. So then here he is clapping multiple times like we saw, and then after the multiple time clap we know he has that final clap, which should be this one right here. So I can then move my playhead back, zoom in to make sure I'm on that audio waveform, and then I'm going to hit M for marker. Looks like it should apply it to the file, but it looks like it might not have. We'll double check when we get down here. And to drag just the audio down, you're going to click here on this audio, and we're going to drag it down beneath our other clip. So again, we're looking for it. It did apply the marker. This is when you want snapping on, and I'm going to move the playhead away from here. When you have snapping on, which is this right here, if it's blue, it's on. If you press S, you'll notice it'll turn off. If you press S again, it'll turn back on. That's the hotkey. I'm going to then drag it closer, and it's going to snap to that marker. You can see it's snapping to it with that line and let go. And then what I can do is I can go ahead and play and see if we have it synced up.
What's up, everybody? My name is Justin Oliver.
And it sounds like we have everything synced. We don't hear the audio coming twice. So I'm going to go ahead and mute this audio and then listen to this one.
For tonight, I'm so happy to be here. So happy that you guys are out here. Let's get this show on the road.
If I want to make any audio adjustments, what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and drag my audio line up a little bit because it looks like we need to get it between the 6 and 12. Now remember, with Justin, as any artist, you're going to have some songs that are quieter, some songs that are louder. So you might want to actually maybe wait until you're done doing your multicam edit and then cut it, or you can look to where you have different audio waveforms and you can use keyframes like we talked about in our intro classes with the pen tool to adjust your audio. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of check my levels.
Alright, my name is Justin Oliver and this is I Want You Back.
So I figure if you are going to go ahead and, re-export all the multiple clips, sometimes it's nice to just go ahead and sync up the files here. So that way when you do the multicam edit, when you're done doing the multicam edit, you already have the audio on there. Whereas if you want, you could just go ahead and export out everything, like I said, do the multicam edit, and then sync it up in post. However, sometimes I tend to do it this way just because that way I already have all my audio there, and it's already in that file. Um, so that's something to think about. Remember, if you do want to make any color corrections or edits, you are going to want to do that now as opposed to during the multicam edit because things will be different. Now there are situations where the lighting does change. Maybe they realize they were underexposed versus overexposed. So remember when you're shooting, especially if you don't have a director there to see what you're shooting and communicate with you through a comm channel, you are going to have to pay attention to your focus as well as your white balance and your exposure. So if I know this is what I want and I don't need to export out or adjust any color, I can hit 1 and then I can just go ahead and go to the end. Instead of just hitting down all the time, I can zoom out. And it looks like this is the first break. So if I needed to, I would then have to get the second one. Now, we did not get him to clap for the second one because he was already in show and there's people there. So you might have to match that one up a little bit differently. With that situation, what I would probably do is look for a certain word that's easy to say. However, remember the first portion of the second set of his concert, we did have an issue with the first song, so you might want to sync after the second song. So I guess we can go ahead and look at that real quick. So we're going to go here. I'm going to unmute it. I'm going to mute this. Well, I don't need to mute this one because there's no audio here. And we're going to hear and listen for his. So we did not really get the Beyonce on here. So if I wanted the Beyonce, what I could do is go to the board mix if I wanted to go from here, and I need to find the Beyonce. So we know based on the time that it's at the timeline, and also that this is the second set, it's going to have to be after the music. You can see that these are vocals, they're varying a lot, whereas this is almost more of a steady audio waveform, so this is going to be probably your music, so let's check. So unfortunately, we didn't get the Beyonce audio on the Tascam, so we're going to have to look for it at the beginning here. So it sounds like this is kind of where the Beyonce is. So I'm going to put an endpoint here, and I'm going to drag this down to my timeline. And I'm going to go ahead and try to match it up. Obviously, it's not going to be matched up right there, but I'm going to go ahead and try to look at matching up with Beyonce. So he said, my mom would kill me if she heard me say that. So that's the beginning of his second set. So what we can do is we can drag all of this over, and then I can go ahead and look for the my mom said she would kill me if she heard me say that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then look for that on here. So I can mute it, and I'm going to look for my mom.
My mom would kill me if she heard me say that.
So what we need to do is zoom in. So this waveform right here is the mom part, my mom. Put an M for marker. Now you can go ahead and always sync these up with Adobe Premiere, looking for it to sync. But I like to do it manually. It's also a good skill to know a little bit about playheads. So we need to unmute this one, mute this one, check it. So this one is my mom. And then we're going to just move it so it's here, but I'm going to go ahead and shorten this because I don't need this dead space. You can see I did it very easily. However, I've been doing this for a while, so whenever you hear the beginning of it, that's when you put the marker. So I'm going to mute this and let's check it and see. We can see the levels from the board mix are low, so we're going to go ahead and try to boost it.
Y'all haters corny with that Illuminati mess.
So you can see we are not getting quite into the 6 and 12, but I've already pulled the volume all the way up. So you can hit Control, right click, or right click on your mouse and go to audio gain, and I can up it. This is not, the number you put in here is not where it's going to go. So if I put in 6, it's not going to go to 6. It's just going to up it by 6. So we'll say 4 dB. Now you can see I'm between -12 and -6.
I'm so reckless when I rock that Givenchy dress. I'm so possessive, so I rock this rock necklace. My daddy Alabama, mama Louisiana.
So I can see that it's definitely synced. So if you know that we did have an issue with recording that whole that song, and you wanted to definitely use that song in your edit, you can maybe consider syncing your audio and video with the board mix. Remember, the board though does record everything, whereas we stopped recording with the cameras because we didn't want to have that extra stuff. We didn't have enough cameras. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. So now I have my 2 separate clips. Here it looks like obviously the board kept recording because we couldn't find him to stop it, but we did stop recording so that way all of the groups could only record 3 hours as opposed to recording his entire concert for this one because it was much longer in duration. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now that you have the audio and video synced, remember, if you want to change the color you need or exposure, you need to do that now. And then after you do that, because remember, I will be grading you on the exposure and the color, and we will be picking the best ones to send to Justin that he will actually put on his website from each concert. He does want you to personally edit the songs and edit out the information between. He does like the intro where it says, "I'm Justin Oliver and this is such and such song," so he would like you to include that and then cut each individual song. So remember, you do need to make sure that you have good exposure, white balance, and color, and then that way you're more likely that he will pick your video. So what we're going to do is, now that I have it linked together, and we're going to say in theory I've already edited the color because this is a little dark. When you do shows, there are some points where it'll be dark and a little bit lighter. Generally you'd have somebody shading and adjusting your exposure and white balance, but you guys are the only people we had doing that, so if you didn't catch it, then that's just what we have. So I'm going to zoom in. I only need to the end of the video. I don't necessarily need this extra audio. So I'm going to hit an out point, and then I'm going to export this. And it's important that I know what clip I'm exporting. I'm exporting Cam2 Card 1. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say Export, Media. And to make it easier and quicker for it to upload, I'm going to go to my H.264 and I'm going to go to my Vimeo preset, 1080p. P for progressive, which goes online. I can see I'm going to be exporting the audio and video. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to name it so that way I can put it online. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my folders, and it's in Cam2, Cam2 Card 1, and I have my raw Cam2 Card 1 exported footage here. So I can say open this up. So it's Cam2, Card 1, Set 1. And I'm going to say Save, and I'm going to export it. So if you don't like this exported clip that I'm giving you, you can definitely go ahead and use this method to put the clips together on your timeline, sync up your audio, because you're already there. Why not just go ahead and sync up the audio manually so you get practice with markers and get practice syncing things up. It's a good skill to have. You don't always want to rely on automation. Plus, I mean, you're already there, like I said, exporting it. But then you also want to make sure you edit the clips and the exposure and the color. So maybe you might not want this actual clip that I'm giving to you, but you can see, like I said, this is going to take a long time. So it's 1 hour and 36 minutes, and that's minimum. It's probably going to raise and lower, so it might go up to 1 hour 45, it might go to less. So I'm going to go ahead and quit this tutorial, but that's basically how you can put together the clips on the timeline and sync it with your audio.